So how much does that direct contact with people kind of affect maybe a company or a boss that's looking to hire, maybe hasn't even thought about it? But, how much of an impact does really meeting the person and putting a face to, the all the qualifications on a resume, how much does that actually help?
I think I'll defer the specifics of job search implied in that question to Joan, but in anything, it makes a difference. There is a very real exchange that takes place when people meet face to face. That does not take place through the hard copy resume, through electronic media, other than possibly, or electronic communications devices, other than possibly over the phone. Once you've met the person,
Right.
then you already have the basis of that interaction, that exchange that has taken place, which we know from the biological basis of my profession, the science that's done in that, it sets off some very real neurochemical changes in each of us anytime we interact with another person. And if those are good, people want that again. They want they want you to come back so they can experience you again. So
Right.
that would be my contribution to answering the question in terms of the actual job component.
Right. I mean, I think that the advantage of having met someone in person, even if it's for an informational interview, they don't have any openings right now. If you've made a positive impression, if you've followed up with good follow-up information, sent a letter, definitely sent a thank you note, and you stay in touch. People, for every 4 to 6 weeks, if they've been reaching out and they're making direct contacts, should follow up and say, let them know my search is going well, but I'm still, active. Perhaps this article is of interest to you. The networking should be a real exchange of information. And I think that what happens is if someone is having a sincere exchange of information with another person, they're trying to build a relationship, suppose a month from now that company gets an opening and they'll think, oh, I met that nice person that did this and this. Maybe they'll call them. I mean, that's
Right.
what you're hoping, is to be forefront in people's mind. Another thing that we recommend if someone goes for an informational interview is we recommend that everybody have a map of companies that they're targeting. Take the map with you. Show it to them. Maybe this person doesn't have an opening, but they know somebody across the street at that company.
Right.
And one thing I didn't mention before is a lot of people, one reason they're stuck in their search is that their focus is too narrow. In good economic times, it takes a targeted map of 200 jobs to create a valid search. Now, that doesn't have to mean 200 openings, but just 200 jobs that a person could do. One large employer might have 20 jobs that they could do. So it's not as overwhelming as finding 200 companies to apply to, but it is identifying a large variety of jobs and reaching out for those jobs. Somebody that's in the chair today might resign next month and there's an opening. So that is another aspect of the search where I think people do get, they get a little bit stuck because they don't approach enough companies. So it's a numbers game too.
So those are the numbers in good economic times. May I just ask, what are they now? Or is
I
there
don't
an estimate of
I
that?
don't have a number now, but I know that 200 is the minimum in good times, so I would think, it might be 300 or it's going to take longer.
Right.
And it's also the amount of time somebody puts into the search. A good full-time search should take about 35 hours a week. Now, back to what Dr. Smith was saying, we say to everyone, take 5 hours for fun that's during the work week, that if you had a job, you wouldn't be able to take 5 hours off during the week and go to the beach or whatever you like to do. Force yourself to have some fun and take
Right.
some advantage of this time when you're not fully employed.
But you can almost say that the job hunt is almost like a job in itself.
It is a job in itself. It's not almost, it is.
Okay, so how do I go about researching a company that I might be interested in, or maybe before I go in for that interview? I mean, I'm going to have to know something about the company that I'm interviewing for. So how do I go about doing that?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Thanks to the internet, of course, today there is a lot of information. And the first place that you would probably want to go is to the company website. Most companies have a reasonable website that will give you a lot of information about the company, the people who work there, possibly access to their annual report and to any recent, public relations activities that have been posted. If you have enough time and the annual report is not available online, you can usually call Investor Relations and get one so that you're familiar with the financials. Oftentimes there are discussion boards about companies which can be really insightful if you just Google it in, and sometimes the employees talk about what it's like to work there. Then there are other sources like Hoover's, Harris Directory, that are online resources that have a lot of information about companies. Another great resource both for networking and research right now is LinkedIn.com. That's the fastest growing professional networking site. Many companies now have posted their profile on LinkedIn. And along with that profile, there usually are names of people who work there so that you can click on and read about the people who work at the company. And if there is time and you are resourceful, another way to learn about the company is to see if through any of your contacts or any of your networking, you can talk to somebody who works there. And that's, again, getting off the computer, getting out, talking to people. It's not always possible, but if you check all of your contacts and you're well networked, you might know someone who works there, and you can call them up or invite them for coffee and say, I have an interview next week. I'd really like to know what's important to your company. What's it like working there? What are the key issues? So the more time you have and the better prepared you can be, the more successful the interview will be.
So where are a lot of places, what are some of the industries that are really hiring right now, or, that always want people?
Well, I think that the medical industries, anything related to healthcare, they seem to still be hiring. I mean, I noticed just in the paper this other week that, Miami, it's still hospitality here. We see some restaurants opening. There are things going on with hotels. So there seems to still be activity. I think that there are being some projects released where there will be more of construction work. So there are opportunities, and I think it's also, I think it is important to read the paper. I think it is important to use the internet, at least for research. I just don't want people to spend all day there just looking at those jobs. But you can set up alerts. There are sites like Indeed.com or Simply Hired that they spider out to all of the different places where they pull jobs from. So, for example, some companies don't advertise, but they might put a job on their website. So if you use one of these sites where it gets spiders, you get feeds on other opportunities as well, and just to see who's hiring. As I said, somebody could set up an alert and just look at what industries or companies are hiring within 10 miles of their home so that they have an idea of what's going on. And then, a lot of jobs are never advertised. That's the other part, is getting out there.
I think the other thing for people to remember too is that it doesn't necessarily have to be employment. It can be consulting.
Excellent.
It can be beginning a business for the more entrepreneurial. And there are signals coming certainly from the federal government right now about where some of those opportunities will be. Not might be, but will be. Green industries. I mean, that covers such an array of possibilities. And healthcare, which again covers a huge array of opportunities, both as a consultant and as an employee potentially. And this is a time, to think outside of one's own comfort zone and push that a little bit. Particularly if there's ever been an interest or a dream of having one's own company, now might be the time. There are a lot of contracts and grants being let for various kinds of, in just those two industries, green and healthcare opportunities. And beyond that, certainly beyond that. Education is another big one that's going to be coming down the pike. Within the next, I would say, 18 months, we're going to see a lot more opportunities in educational consulting and that kind of thing.
So a couple of final questions. Does it look bad on a resume if, let's say, while you're looking for your ideal job, you kind of take whatever you can in the meantime, to make sure that you're getting some money? Does that look bad that you have, that you take any job while you're still looking for something in your preferred field?
It's always best to take a job that you can stay with for a while, but my answer to that is it really depends on your circumstances. It depends on how long you've been looking. Sometimes if you've been out of work for a while and you're not finding anything in your field and you can get an offer of another job, sometimes you just have to take that job. And what I say as a coach, even when you accept your next job, you're thinking 2 jobs out. So when you take that job, think, okay, what do I need to be doing to get to my next job? After this economy, I hope that anyone, once they land, will keep up good networking, have one coffee or one lunch or one good phone call a week to stay in contact with people. If you need to get a job, take a job. If you're only going to take it and you're still going to be really looking to have something else for the next 3 to 6 months, keep in mind that a full-time search takes 35 hours a week to have any traction, and a part-time search is 15 hours a week. If you really think that this is something that I'm really settling for just as an emergency right now, I like the idea of consulting or part-time work rather than really being, I would hate to see someone be locked in to a job that they're still going to be in trouble on their credit cards and their mortgage. And yes, some people might have to take a concession on salary if they can't commute or certain things, but be cautious of that. It's not the worst thing in the world. It really depends on your financial circumstances, but temporary and consulting assignments are also an option.